Hello everybody and welcome back to Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep Final Mix playthrough. I was indeed mostly correct about what we are going to be doing for the next two parts. It is going to be sort of that final Unversed Challenge chase-up. Before we actually, go do that, I realised I don't actually have Sonic Blade. And, seriously, that is not a difficult command to get, because all I need to do is beat this. And, actually, with Aqua and all the good stuff that I've got, particularly Magnet Spiral. Magnet Spiral is deadly during this. Especially with things like Aroga, if you have Zero Graviga as well. Just anything that does those area of effect type attacks is just going to absolutely obliterate this challenge. I mean, there is no way in hell Herc really stands a chance at all. Even if you accidentally screw yourself over and hit a barrel without meaning to with Fire Wheel or something. The other thing is if you have Fire Wheel or the Lightning Roll as Ben has, that can also hurt and damage the urns. So that also will really help in terms of getting a higher score. Really, you don't need to. There's absolutely no need to go for a ludicrously high score in this, because all you actually need to do is just beat Herc at the end of the day. I'm just going for the highest score possible because you've seen this this will be the third time you've seen it. A little bit more because obviously what we did with Ben, and part of me was just come on, give me that 400, and I just missed out. I was really quite annoyed on that one, but still, that was so glorious to pull off. It felt so good. But there we go, we've got Sonic Blade, and I don't know how I hadn't really dealt much with Sonic Blade in Aqua Story before this, but hey, I have it now, and that is what is important. And it was around this time, I believe, that I was starting to go, right, I want to make sure that I get the commands that I need to in order to get all of the attack and the magic commands that I can get, because really they're the only things that I've actually got left to deal with. As you can see, I've now got all of the attack commands, got a whole bunch of magic attack commands that I still haven't unlocked, which I was just right, I need to figure out what these are, what do I need in order to get them, and then level them up and go with that. So there is going to be quite a bit of command faffing about at the start of this part, because it's very much a whole thing of I just want to make sure that I'm getting everything that I need to. Because what I'm actually going to end up doing by the end of Aqua Story is showing off all of the commands that Aqua can use. Obviously I haven't done it for everybody else, because ultimately I'm lazy and I couldn't be bothered to do it with them. I should have done. I know I should have done, but these things happen. I'm not going to show off all the shot locks because they require a whole bunch of other things to do and sort out and all that jazz. Same with some of the other commands, but all of the sort of general magic attack commands can definitely work that one out. And be very satisfied when I can actually do that. And yeah, get that 394p on the Break the Urns. Loving it. And yeah, as much as I like my Sonic Blade, it isn't actually going to do me a whole lot of good in terms of getting those attacks. So that's gonna just slide right on out of there. I'm sure I'll give it a little bit of use at some point, but there's not really a whole lot of time left for it to be actually all that useful. Right, I'm just going to be buying more commands now. And I love that I can just buy triple Faragas now. It's going to make my life a hell of a lot easier, you know, when I come to do the rest of the Mirage Arena, because it then just means I can go, right, just purchase away, all sorted, great, wonderful, fantastic. But what's also quite hilarious is that actually doing that little bit of purchasing has also taught me out. I can't believe I never had Stopra. Well, I can purchase that, so that makes my life easier in that sense. Some of these just appear in the shop as you go along, which is quite helpful for making sure you get all your commands, because by the time you get towards the end of the game, then it means that you've got less to actually have to meld to get. I mean, if it's in sort of those last two rows, then generally you're probably going to have to meld it or find it in a delightful chest or something. But still, it's all quite useful. And yeah, you definitely want to level up that Magnera. That's going to be quite useful to you. And if you could, you know, actually go and do a bit of gameplay now, rather than menuing past me, that would be quite nice. See, I'm sat going, come on, chop chop, stop mucking about in menus. You've got shit to do, and I definitely do have shit to do. So now is the time to stop mucking about with these things and actually get on with it. I think finally, yes, now we're going to get into some combat, and we are going to, you know, work our way up to the Unversed Challenge in Olympus Coliseum first, since we're here anyway. I can't remember whether there was a specific thought process in terms of the order I was going to go in how I was going to deal with this, but pretty much it was just a free-for-all. It was just like, right, I'll go to Olympus Coliseum first because I want that Sonic Blade, because that's something that really I should have had already. But after that, I can't remember whether I just went, right, let's go in the order of all the worlds again, or whether I just decided to just mix it up. I do believe that we are definitely going to be going to Castle Dreams in this particular part. But I can't remember what other world we may or may not be going to in this one. Because we've sorted out Enchanted Dominion, so we don't need to worry about going back to that one, because that's all sorted. I can't remember whether there are any others that really need dealing with. And I've realised that I've just come into here, and that's where the Unversed Challenge is. I was just like, where is it? I could have sworn it was in this room. This is the only room that it can be in, because this is the only room that it's in. But clearly it just decided it wanted to hide out of my viewpoint and be a sod. But that's okay, because we're gonna absolutely trash it. Because, yeah, it's not gonna stand a chance whatsoever. And you know, since these enemies don't seem to actually want to show up, now's the time to, you know, do some of that melding that was needed. And there's one of the commands that we needed, Thundaga Shot, which is definitely great fun. As I said, some of these more powerful commands are just really epic. Thundaga Shot wouldn't necessarily is one of the most useful, but it's definitely a lot of fun. And it's also here where I'm being a lot more careful in terms of what moves I am melding and what I'm throwing with them, because I want to make sure that I get everything possible. But yes, we've got another of those magic attacks, which is great! And I'm kind of flabbergasted at how many confusion strikes I have. It's slightly ridiculous. D-Link Magnet's not going to be hugely useful in terms of what we're about to do, but we deal with it. D-Link Magnet basically, so Money Magnet brings all the money in towards you, D-Link Magnet brings you a whole bunch of D-Link crystals, which is obviously really useful for pulling off all those D-Links, which you're going to want to do, so why not go for it? And so, let us take on the Unversed Challenge, which, you know, initially looks terrifying. Defeat 300 Jelly Shades as quickly as possible. Really, this is nothing, because we have a whole bunch of excellent moves. If you use things like Magnera, just all of the amazing moves, use command styles, you just absolutely obliterate them. And as you can see, that went really, really quickly, and 3-star. I believe you've got to get it under 30 seconds in order to get that. So, yeah, that went pretty swimmingly, and I'm quite happy with that. And actually, if I'm looking at my my audio waves correctly, I believe that actually the only two that we're going to get done in this part are indeed Olympus Coliseum and Castle of Dreams. But that is okay, because you know, we've gotten Thundaga Shot, we've gotten Sonic Blade, we're getting a whole bunch of commands throughout this, and also we're getting the delight that is 3-starring Unversed challenges, which does just make me feel like an absolute badass when I pull it off. So, even though, you know, it's just maybe stuff to watch and commentate over a little bit, but it makes me feel like a badass. So, really, I do come out of this victorious. And right, so Vision Faraga and Faraga Burst will give us a brand new command. And it's another pretty glorious one, if I recall correctly. Yes, Raging Storm. It is perhaps not necessarily, again, the most useful of commands, but it is pretty gosh darn awesome to pull out, because it can just obliterate your foes, and anything that can do that, I'm totally down with. Now, the illusion stuff and these types of commands aren't really all that useful. They were more useful in the Mirage Arena, when it had that whole multiplayer element, but with that gone, it doesn't necessarily serve as much use of a purpose. But hey, these things happen, and really I'm not too fussed about losing that particular multiplayer aspect, because I'm not going to use it anyway, so it works out for me. And come on, pull out that Raging Storm, you know you want to. Okay, am I just waiting until I've murdered more enemies? And that seems to be the case. Seriously? Seriously? That is so annoying. So yes, Raging Storm, you surround yourself in fire and then you can move about and murder things. It's great fun. The only issue is that you do move quite slowly, and I think you can be attacked whilst you're using it, which, once again, is not necessarily the most ideal thing in the world. But hey, you take what you can get. And there's one of the other magic attacks, Energy Magnet, which I believe brings you health orbs in the same manner as Money Magnet and D-Link Magnet, or D-Magnet. I don't need another second chance, god damn it. I say I'm going to be more careful with these things, and then like blatantly just am completely not. But hey, it does happen. There we go, we only have 3 magic attacks left to collect. Which is kind of insane. That throughout the entirety of Aqua's playthrough, I had managed to show off pretty much all of them, and so much so that come the end of the playthrough, it was not actually a whole lot of extra bother in order to get them. Annoyingly, the other stuff is a bit more of a challenge, but that's okay. I mean, like these, the finish commands, hey, it's gonna happen this way. And also in terms of abilities, I think that's also not going to be completely complete by the end of it, but that's okay, because as long as I've shown off like commandy stuff, it works out. So yes, definitely haven't got a confuse barrier yet, so that's quite useful. I do need to get another barrier. I'm not going to realise that I need to get another barrier, but I do. Because, as I believe I said earlier on in Aqua's playthrough, in order to get Restore Barrier, which I think you can only get by melding, you need to have 2 barriers in your kind of selection of commands. Otherwise, you are not going to be able to do it, because the game checks to see whether you have got another barrier installed, because it thinks that if you don't, if you're using up a barrier, you don't have another one to use, and it wants you to be able to keep that. Despite the fact that if you've got like a focus barrier or a confused barrier or a stop barrier, you've got a barrier and you're probably using that instead. But it won't accept that as actually having a barrier, so you've got to have 2 regular barriers to be able to then meld a restore barrier, which is a pain, but hey, you learn these things, you get used to it and you deal with it. But yes, that is Olympus Coliseum done and dusted, so let's mosey on over and continue our delightful Unversed challenge mission by heading to the Castle of Dreams. And I believe this Unversed challenge is in the ballroom, so that's exactly where we are going to go. Obviously murdering enemies all along the way, because I want that final finish command of Aqua's, which I believe in the case of every single character, I think it's you have to defeat 1,000 enemies, although I could be wrong on that. We'll see. But yes, as you can see, Raging Storm in this particular room is hilariously deadly. to the point where nothing could stand in my way. And while I could have gone back and, you know, killed more enemies, because I'm pretty sure I missed a few in my very speedy rush forward, it's okay. It's just fun to use it to obliterate things like that, because it's just the chaos that ensues is so insanely satisfying. And once again, I have to point out how fun it is to be able to return to some of these older worlds where you can just obliterate enemies in a single hit. It's great. Now, before we actually take on the Inverse Challenge, I mean, are we gonna just take on the Inverse Challenge straight away? It would appear we are, actually. And one of the things you want to make sure is that you have things like Magnaga, Faragas, and so on in your deck. Anything that will draw the enemies towards you and kill them very quickly. Raging Storm I would not say is that useful of a move, but hey, anything that's ranged that homes in on enemies is really useful. Anything that can speed you up is particularly useful. Pretty much Aqua with her long range attacks is ideal for taking on this particular challenge. I don't really have the best setup for this, but it's okay because it was just a decent enough setup to get me where I needed to be. Because I believe that in order to get 3 stars in this, you need to get over 30. So I was pretty close the times when I did it with Terra. So I believe I got up to like 24 or something, but it was very difficult to get any higher than that. But it's okay, because we did just enough there to get that wonderful 3-star ranking, and I'll happily take that. And since that's done, it's now just time to work our way out of here. And kill more of the enemies that are actually in this room that we didn't kill the first time, because one part of me didn't necessarily realise that they were here, because I don't normally run this far into the room, but also just because more enemies killed means more experience, means getting much closer to that final finish command, and also levelling up commands in general. It's just an excellent opportunity. And actually, I would say that going back to some of these earlier worlds is a really good way of getting some of those kill X number of enemy finish commands, because you do get through them really quickly at this point in the game. So, why not? So, yes, so pretty much what we're going to be doing in the next part, which will be the penultimate part of Aqua's story, is just going through those last few worlds and taking on unversed challenges. So I believe we've got Dwarf Woodlands, we've got Disney Town, we've got Deep Space and Neverland to do. Obviously we would have Keyblade Graveyard, but you can't do Keyblade Graveyard until you've actually beaten the story. So, there's only really 4 left, because we've already done Enchanted Dominion, we've already done Olympus Coliseum and Castle Dreams now, and I believe we already did Radiant Gardens when we were on our little trip through that time. So, yeah, there's only 4 of them left to go. So, I think that we're in pretty good position to just roll on through all of that, actually. And here we go. Here is another brand new command. I could have sworn we'd already dealt with a... Oh no, it was Flaming Burst that we mixed with that. But there we go, that's Mega Flare, which we haven't had yet. And obviously Mega Flare is also an absolute delight. And I'm not sure actually how close that puts us to completing our magic command deck. We'll see in a minute, actually. But I think it does put us pretty gosh darn close. Like, if it's not the final magic command, it's certainly, like, the second to last one. And that's really awesome in general. Now, am I going to go make use of my Mega Flare before I head off? No, clearly not. But we have leveled up Magnaga and Bind, which is going to get us a new one as well. So, that's always good. So, I actually don't know what this one turns out to be. We'll see in a second. So, that nets us Mini. How was that new? How have I not had Mini? Oh well, I'll take it. Whatever. Feels weird because I'm pretty sure that's a pretty early command in some of the other ones. Ah, one more magic command. But it's okay. In the next part, I am pretty gosh darn sure we're going to get that. I don't think we're going to get Ice Slide. That's fine. We will eventually get Restore Barrier, but I can't remember when. Don't know about Reprisals, but it's okay. But we are going to get that last magic attack without a shadow of a doubt, because I cannot leave that empty. But with that all sorted, it's time to pretty much save up and then get the hell out of the Castle Dreams and on to the rest of our unversed challenges. Let's go.